Good evening and welcome to TM Radio Broadcasting. My name is Frank Allen. We are live from Boston, Massachusetts. Today's date, Friday, January the 3rd, 2025. Can you believe it? To listen to the broadcast, dial +1 518 801 1318. When we are off the air, you can listen on this line to past episodes 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Call into the studio to ask my guest speaker or myself a question at +1 617 987 8603. Now I'm going to speak a little bit about my guest, David Ruble. And David Ruble, the inventor of CyberShield, is a lifelong learner with a degree from the University of Phoenix, where he earned 6 honors. He has extensive experience in IT, including running nationwide operations for John Deere and working as a server administrator. David's research into Havana syndrome and directed energy attacks led him to collaborate with high-level Defense Department members, including Dr. James Giordano, in 2021. He released the CyberShield device to beta listeners, or beta testers back then. The CyberShield has been successfully deployed at a U.S. Army base and in several countries, including the USA, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Germany, India, England, Italy, and China. David's clients include doctors, social workers, military personnel, law enforcement, and judicial system professionals. Studies on the CyberShield have been conducted by experts, including the late Dr. Robert Duncan, a Harvard graduate and former CIA project worker. Okay, David, why don't you say hello?
Hey, Frank. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Well, we have another year to make an assault on this atrocity. And
we do. I'm looking forward, to 2025 being a big year for us. We hope every year is going to be the year, but let's really hope that this year is the year that we're going to see some big change. The late Robert Duncan, who you mentioned just a moment ago, he had some beliefs himself that 2025 was going to be a very pivotal and important year in concerns with the declassification of some really important information that's going to be, vital for us to be able to finally see. And, hopefully we'll start to see a lot of the answers to our questions if that happens as Dr. Duncan predicted. So we have a prediction. Hopefully, the words escaping my mind right now, like Nostradamus, that he's foreseeing our future for us, and let's hope that he's right.
That's right. Well, I've done some checking, very easy actually. April the 19th of last year was the last time that you appeared here on TM Radio Broadcasting. What has changed since then, David?
So, development has been getting interesting. we picked up new clients, more places. Well, I don't think you had Australia on your list yet of countries that we've deployed the shield in yet. But one of the really cool things going on is I've been working with AI resources now for a little while, and it's really made things interesting. So for those who maybe don't know a lot about AI resources and what I'm actually kind of referring to, I myself I am using a model in ChatGPT that I pay a monthly subscription for, and the AI models are getting very advanced, and it's very impressive what they can do for you now in terms of being able to research for you, even research in foreign languages. But, and not only that, but as an assistant, it can actually help write computer code. So I have been taking advantage of the opportunity to have these, newer high tech tools available to work on more advancements with the cyber shield. So AI has actually contributed to some really impressive advancements that we've made. One of them being a new brain area protection screen that's 100% AI developed, both in research and as well as writing the software. And it allows users to select different regions and areas of the brain to provide specific protection to those areas. And it's really cool. A lot of users have gotten a lot of benefit from it, and there's other things being worked on as well that are incorporating research that has been assisted through the AI. So what I mean by that, to clarify, is that there's actually quite a bit of Russian and Chinese research out there. Surprisingly, they've been very forthcoming, much more forthcoming with information on these kind of technologies, as well as actual test results for them being published, than the US. But of course, if you're, not able to read in these languages, you might not ever be able to locate them, or know what they say. So, it's one of the examples where AI has been an invaluable tool at being able to help expand the research base of good usable information that contributes to better understanding, how to develop solutions against the problems that we have to deal with, by better understanding, how they're deploying technologies against us, and what their documented results of that are, and what their processes and methods are. um, I'm also using, as well as to assist in some more advanced coding work, that incorporates things like machine language, or I'm sorry, machine learning. So it's still in development. I don't quite have it ready yet, but I have some active scan systems finally that I've been wanting to work on for a while, and it's going to be co-developed with using AI to incorporate machine learning to actually analyze the signal spectrum around you, and to be able to understand when signals, may look anomalous. And then when they do appear anomalous for any reason, based on machine learned patterns, then the system will be able to autonomously further investigate those signals, and do higher resolution scans, be able to compare them against known frequencies, known types of broadcasts. So we would, be applying this machine learning to determine, is there AM modulation present? Is there FM modulation present? What type of band are we looking at? Here's the side band. All the different things that you know so well, near and dear to your heart, Frank. So we'd be taking an honest, earnest look at the entire spectrum, and actually categorizing and defining what the spectrum is around us. And once that tool is able to be complete, I think it's going to be a really powerful tool in being able to not only understand what's happening around us, and but what we have to defend from, how better to defend from it, and ultimately to know what we should finally document that we can actually make mean something.
Very good. I just wanted to congratulate you on partnering to a degree with Jacqueline Domnitz. And I understand that you have, I don't know exactly when, but how has Jacqueline impacted your organization?
So Jacqueline is she is an amazing person. She's just got, so much love and compassion for wanting to be able to help people and do her part to make a positive change for, for as long as she's able. And she initially, we met because I was starting a beta group. I wanted a group of, well, I guess I should say alpha. Well, I was did want to do some alpha testing, some beta testing, and I was ready to expand my testing and research past just my own personal testing and research. So I kind of opened it up to the world at that point, that those who could afford to pay for the hardware, then they could buy it. It would be built for them, and they were just paid cost initially for the machines. And so I took losses on those to start getting those out and around the world. And Jax was one of the initial early adopters of the technology. So she got in on the ground level of things when the Cyber Shield was literally a box with antennas coming out of it and a button on the side of it. And the button, when you first bought it, only did one thing, and that was to shut the shield off. So you pressed and held down on it for a few seconds, and then it would shut off. And so that's kind of when she got in on things. And obviously we've progressed a lot further now. It's got a touch screen and interface and mode selections, everything else. The ones that still have the button on them, because they were the older models, the buttons don't even do nothing on them anymore. But yeah, so it's come a long way, and she's gained a lot of benefit out of using the equipment over the years, so much so that she's been able to take enough pieces of her life back that she's an avid promoter of the positive effects and life-changing benefits of the equipment, that she just loves to be able to be an important part of something big and be able to shout out that there's help to the world and try to make sure everybody hears. So she's graciously built a website for the Cyber Shield, and with some of the other Cyber Shield owners as well, that's helped her to build that website and maintain it. And she's made some different commercials and things like that that get aired on some of the different calls and conferences and everything that the targeted individuals call into. And she just talks about it and tries to promote it and make sure that people who don't know about it hear about it any possible chance that she can get. So I mean, it's really amazing what she does. I'm extremely thankful for all that she does, and it's just great to see somebody affected so positively like that, that they just want to do everything that they can to try to help save the world as well. It's a greatly appreciated person.
Very good. I remember that Cyber Shield has 9 independent radio frequency modules. Can they work in situ? Can you isolate one frequency or use any combination that you choose?
So yeah, I can. Each of the modules can function independently of each other, or they can all simultaneously, function as a combined array. Which those like you who are in the radio industry know the kinds of tricks that you can do with arrays of hardware, especially like that. And that's where we see some of the magic of the equipment taking place, actually, is these different merging and heterodyning effects that can take place when you have, a modular array of hardware in close proximity to each other with the right design principles in place to exploit these kind of known effects. But yeah, they can also operate completely independent of all the other modules as well. So it really, as a base functional piece of hardware that can output different electronic and radio signals, it's actually a pretty impressive piece of hardware as far as what you could do with it. You could, load different software on and make not a jammer with it, for example, that could jam 9 different frequencies simultaneously at the same time. Of course, you could program it to do a whole lot more than that. But yeah, it's a pretty impressive piece of hardware. It's more than I've seen anybody else assemble to date. If somebody's built something more excessive than what I have built, I haven't seen it yet. I think some of the other comparable units I've seen to it stop at about 6 modules, and those are usually hardware dedicated to things like, straight signal jamming, where you're just going to contend directly against signals, which that's not what the primary purpose of this equipment is. We're looking at more of the secondary effects that we can get when we have this array of hardware that can create different properties, different things than expected happening with this energy output that we have. And in this case, we're going for things that have interactions even with, human tissue, human nervous system, and human brain at times.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question concerning a frequency that you don't have on there, possibly. Our
Okay.
population is continually bathed in their homes, in the cities, just about everywhere they go, with 60 cycles or 60 hertz. Do you think it prudent to perhaps add a 60 hertz module in there? 90,
So
yeah, go ahead.
beautiful, beautiful question, Frank. And actually, so the equipment is actually able to provide protection from or even interact with that 60 hertz. So I have had observations direct and from others as well, where all signs point towards some kind of interference based off this 60 hertz that appears to be coming from the power grid, which operates, here in the US at 60 cycles a second. Um, and there is a few things that I have actually in the current software that is working to mitigate some of these negative effects that seem to be getting induced by being in proximity to, by being, especially when you're really close to the power grid. And there, I don't know the specifics on how it's being exploited, but it would seem that some form of technology is in play that through, energy in motion or magnetic fields or, some kind of energy flux seems to be able to push these 60 these fields that are, you know modulating at 60 hertz off the power grid and into your home, and it has an effect and interacts with you. So that's, my observations of what appears to be happening. We don't know everything on it, but yeah, I love that question because that's some really current work right now as well. One of the new Cyber Shield owners, when we have people who have issues that are actually different or not common in comparison to other users, then I work with them to, try to see how best to mitigate that and, tweak the software and make it better so it functions well for them and all future users who might deal with those problems. And so he's been having issues with and documenting this 60 hertz interference that appears to be present. as well as a few other signals, but I'm not sure that they're tied to the power grid.
Okay, great. I'm glad to see that you're getting into that. And it's something that has to be researched. Power line communication, or PLC, has been around since 1910. And it was originally used to thwart the ever increasing phone bill hikes. And it became a secondary system besides the phone company in which people could communicate and receive auditory responses, music, whatever they wanted. And the concept, like I say, has been around since 1910. So my question is once again, oh, and Dr. Robert Duncan said that in early years they did use this type of communication for mind control. I did a show, he was on there. That was one of my questions, and he answered it. But PLC is still being used. It's used in smart meters. It's used as the link, if you will, between a computer and the grid. So my question, I guess, is shouldn't we all research this a little bit more? All you have to do is,
I
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there it is worth looking into more to try to understand, what precisely is going on in this current iteration of how the grid is being exploited, because it does seem like it's becoming more of a common thing of late. And I know for a little while there, it actually got pretty aggressive last year. Uh, leading up to the end of the year, it seemed like things kind of died. It seems like some of those exploitations kind of died down a little bit, but not for everybody. I know for a fact that there's still some people that seem to be dealing with some heightened issues on that exploitation. So, something, of late, it seems like, you know, one could infer that they might be looking for more opportunity to start using, you know, technology in that type of way more often. So we really should be looking at how better to protect against that, because it's powerful what can be done with the power grid. That's a lot of energy in there. And with a way to be able to exploit that and push some of the effects of the fields of that even outside of its boundaries, to be able to modulate against it and create alternative but yet even powerful signals. With this grid, we're talking about, done properly, you could use segments of the grid that are as many miles long as you need to produce, not only 60 hertz, but heterodynes against that to create other hertz that, along with 60 hertz, both, the human body and the brain, the nervous system, can be responsive to. That's a hugely powerful tool if used properly, to be able to manipulate and affect people, neurologically or physiologically in some form of way. You have a lot of energy in a power line. When you have a flow of energy, you have other things going on, such as the inductions of magnetic fields, things like that. With that much energy in motion, strong fields like that potentially being created, and we have ways to steer stuff like that and move it around. Where I mean, who knows what the full effects are of inducing an extremely strong magnetic field off of the power grid and pushing it into somebody's home. It's not exactly something you or I could go do in our basement right now, but these things appear possible, and we've seen some instances where it definitely appears to be happening. It's become more prevalent. So, yeah, anything we could do that could look into, how is it being exploited? How can we understand this better so that we can understand how to protect from it? Could be important if we continue to see these issues on the rise. You're right. It's really simple to exploit technologies like that in ways that can have a profound effect on human life. And that's the scariest part about it is, there's nothing really new about any of the technology that people are facing. Everything that they have, everything that they can do now, they've been able to do for a very long time with very simple technology. The difference we're looking at, fast forward to 2025. I know we're fresh into it, but we got to say 2025. We got to remember what year it is. Uh, what's changed is the technology is just better. Like we had cars 100 years ago, and those cars that we had 100 years ago do everything that a car does today, except now they can do a little bit more. They're a little bit more, they're more precise. They're more efficient. They use energy more effectively. They have extra systems that can help keep the operation of that vehicle, within your expectations, like stability control systems, traction control, anti-lock brakes, so things that improve the quality of your transportation. We have larger vehicles, they increase the quantity of your transportation. And that's the kind of advancements that we mostly see with this technology, as well as that's including the increased processing capabilities of handling data and modulations that are either being transmitted or received, and the analysis and recalibration of. So
David,
we've got.
we have a caller.
Yeah.
Hold on.
All right, all right.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead, caller. You are unmuted. You can speak. Go ahead. Okay. I'll let you go. A lot of people don't understand that when they dial the studio number, they are going to get the studio and not a listener line. So 1318 is the listener line for future reference. Thank you very much, sir.
So yeah, just what I was kind of touching on there. I mean, what we're seeing is it's really, you can think about it as we have increased capability and we have increased quality. And of course, they've, in the iterations of everything, there's, there's new options, new toys and bells and whistles that piggyback on to everything else, which all in the end is, most of it is essentially still doing the same kind of things that's always been done. It's just, the technology is better at it. I wouldn't say that the people operating it are better. That unfortunately is not taking place, but the technology gets better. But yeah, it's frightening to really start to understand the technology and how simple it all is. Somebody like you as a radio operator, you've been around a lot of equipment over your years. You've got a fair amount access to a fair amount of equipment right now. I'm sure that could do wildly crazy things to people if it was assembled in the right kinds of way towards those kind of purposes. I mean, it's just, that's the prevalence of how easy it is to obtain the kind of technologies to do this kind of thing and how simple they are. And then, you've got this massive power grid as well. So, okay, we've known that that's exploitable for a long time. But then, what happens when people actually start to learn how to exploit that for themselves and start to do it? I mean, there's people out there that are I'm sure working on that right now to this day. Maybe some people at the civilian level can already do that. Who knows? But yeah, it's the more we fundamentally understand about how are people attacked, what kind of technologies can be used to attack people, what are the limitations of those technologies, how are those technologies applied to do the things they do, and if one day when we have enough answers, we'll be able to provide really, really effective solutions that can pretty much put it all to an end. But, for now, it relies on people like us, people who are out there trying to put in the work and do the research and get the word out to everybody and make sure everybody knows what we need them to know. And those who want to participate are able to participate and have their voice through people like you, Frank, and the things you do. And that's what we need more of. If we can see an end to it, once there's enough of us, we have to be heard. We can't be ignored. And, based on everything I've seen, and I think a lot of people have been seeing it too, it's getting really aggressive what's happening to people. It's really expanding a lot further than what people are used to seeing. We're seeing Hollywood celebrities now, people like that being affected. So you had a previous guest, Emmanuel, on. I was just
Hold
talking
on,
to Frank
David.
before the show here about it, and he made a documentary. Was it Predators? Predators don't like attention, or Predators don't like it when you stare. Sorry if
Right.
I'm not
Yep.
saying it right. It just recently got released now, so you can see the whole documentary now instead of just the previews. And and he's a Hollywood actor and producer. Um, the musician Mia, if you guys haven't heard, she has a designer
Hello.
clothing line that she's
Okay,
released, and
David. We
it's a
have a
lot of clothes made out of like silver and aluminum and stuff like that in it,
Yeah, I'm
and
back.
it's designed to shield you and protect you from radio signals.
David.
She's got pants, shirts, coats, socks,
Yep.
shoes, hats, the whole 9 yards. And if anybody's not familiar with who Mia is, she's still a successful, a still successful musician to this day. She was really, really popular back when I was a teenager. She was a rapper. She's also an activist. She's from a foreign country, but she was wildly successful, years back in the music industry. She's still around making albums. She's famous as it gets, and I mean, she's, when it's getting to the point that people like this who can be very public with what's going on are starting to pick up the mantle, and we got celebrities coming up with solutions. It's kind of telling you the state that things are getting to.
Okay.
It's not good. Things are getting worse, but with that, it's not all bad. So with that, we gain numbers. So it's about getting our voice out there. It's about being heard. It's about people being informed. There's people being attacked. They don't know what's happening yet. I just met a guy the other day, and he's seems to be affected by some different stuff. And he was telling me about this, that he listened to some past recordings actually of your shows, Frank, and heard me speaking on it and everything. And he thinks that some of that might be what's going on with him. And people walk around and just have no idea until they're able to hear about these problems that people are having, and they realize, like, well, wait a minute, this might be happening to me. And this is what it's all about. But
David,
it's
we have a
becoming a
caller.
bigger problem.
We have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, David. It's
Sorry, I had to
Richie
take a moment
Peel. I
there
don't know
for
if you remember me.
my throat's getting dry. I gotta have a
Um,
drink of coffee here really quick.
David, can you hear the caller? Go ahead, caller.
But
can
yeah.
you
So
hear
for
me?
those of you who didn't know that, I would definitely say Go and check that out because that's really
I
cool
don't
that
think you can
Mia
hear
has
me.
this clothing line out. I haven't talked to anybody who's purchased anything yet from
David,
it.
David, can you hear
Yeah,
the
yeah,
can you hear the
yeah.
caller? Go ahead, caller.
I don't think you can hear me. Hello? Can you hear me,
I
David?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, hello. I was just ringing to talk about your device. It's Richie Peel here. Um, we were on Facebook years and years ago. Anyway, um, I've also been making developments in technology and developed my own radar antennas. And I wish to send you some of my prototypes as soon as possible so you can connect them to your machine and maybe pass square waves through it for post modulation. I've looked up online about heterodyning, and through free space, according to AI, it doesn't actually work in free space heterodyning, but you can pulse amplitude modulate, so you can use waves to modulate new frequencies. So if you modulate it in a certain way, you can create ELF, for example, extremely low frequency, like they are doing. So I've built these and manufactured these prototype radar dishes. I just need your email address, get in contact with you, and I can like send you a bunch over, and you can test it with your machine if you want.
Sure, sure. It would just matter. It just matter how many ohms they are, and if they're just antennas. Yeah,
Well, it's
that I
brand
mean
new.
that would really
I
be good.
designed them and built them, and
That
it's just an
and
SMA
frequency
adapter.
response.
Okay.
But
They're
sure.
brand new. I just like
Yeah, if you want, one of the easiest ways you could probably get a hold of me without botching an email address is if you go to cybershieldinfo.com and you can hit the contact link on there
hmm
and ask to be put in touch with me, and they can get
okay.
you in touch with me.
Okay,
And
I'll
that
do
would be
that.
the
I'll do
place to
that.
go to if anybody was interested. And if anybody didn't previously know much information about the Cyber Shield, they wanted to check it out or inquire into purchasing it. If you go to cybershieldinfo.com, then that's our official website for it, and you should be able to find what you need to know there, or be able to you can hit the contact link if you had some additional questions. But yeah, if you have something that's interesting, novel design that produces an effect that we're not seeing with the different antenna options that we have, and it's able to work effectively, yeah, that would be great. So get in contact with me. I would love to
Yeah,
know more about what you've designed and some of the specifications of it to
yeah,
see what
sure.
we maybe could do to arrange some
Also,
testing and see what kind of positive effects we could have with it.
Yeah, it's very curious because
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
Richie
Great
Peel
teamwork.
Richie Peel has been a guest quite some time ago, and that should probably happen again, Richie.
Yes, I know. I know. I've been very busy. I've been building new designs. I've, I've even bought something called a Hellback array. It's a very interesting device, the Hellback array. German inventor. It creates this magnetic field around it, and if you look at it, it protects against Earth hits, like low frequency Earth frequencies. Um, so I've been experimenting with that recently. I did build a prototype circuit board, but the circuit board didn't work. I went into PCB development, but I have built these radar antennas, which are not going to be in use for anyone, but it'll be very useful for him to plug in because he just needs to connect an SMA cable to it, and he can fire pulses through it instead of Sedinio waveforms. He can put square waveforms through it. So
So
I
these
thought that
have
might
some
be
additional
interesting for
hardware
him.
modules as well
And
that go with them for the modulation. Which that's fine.
yeah, you can
I
use
just
pulse
was
width.
just
You can
was
use
just
pulse.
asking.
amplitude with these radar dishes, Also, I've been using a portable oscilloscope, a handheld oscilloscope, and I found if you ground the black wire or or just use the prod. Actually, I've got like a new version, so it just has one prod. You literally just have to touch that prod, and it'll show you the waveform on my machine. And what I saw there was also what you talked about before about electricity. Um, I, I, I realized I was also getting electricity. I realized I was measuring hertz. Then I started getting excited. But then when I looked up what the hertz was, it said it was electricity. So that was strange. And yes, you can measure the energy off a radio frequency with an oscilloscope. I do need to take this oscilloscope to the park, away from all electrical devices, and test it again, because all radio frequency carries energy, electrical energy. Also, I want to tell you about my recent discovery about how transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, is relevant to pulse-modulated microwaves, as mentioned in Havana syndrome and our attacks. Well, they're both the same, but in reverse. So if you create a magnetic field, you can create radio frequency. If you create radio frequency, it creates a magnetic field because they're bound together and in sync. So if you look up how TMS works, what frequency, what it pulses at, and how it functions, you'll know how the pulse-modulated microwaves work against us. So I've worked out how to do brainstem now. I've also worked out how to read, and by frequency matching brainwaves down in the hertz zone, because when two frequencies combine, they amplify one another. So what is happening is they're pulse-modulating artificial brainwave frequencies through us all, and it's amplifying everything we have. Because the frequency is so low, it doesn't have to be an exact match. It just needs to be close. And that's how the reading part works. And they're also using sonic technologies as well. With psychological operations teams in the military, which I believe are based at Fort Bragg in the US, which is US Psychological Operations Headquarters, working under the direction of intelligence. And this is a Pentagon level program. That's pretty much my update so far. Are you still there?
Right. Yeah, and so here's something interesting too, just to coincide with especially what you just last said. In some of my previous engagements with Dr. James Giordano, one of the first things I actually said directly to the man myself was I know and believe these attacks to be the responsibility of the U.S. military, specifically the Army, and I understand, the kind of problems that they're dealing with and how and why these kind of things happen, and but that wasn't, but I love no, that wasn't what I was calling him to talk about, of course. But I expressed that as my actual viewpoint to that man. Mind you, no comments from him on it, and I wouldn't expect that. Some things there you're not really supposed to get a response to, but it's more just kind of informing him. Here's what I know and believe be going on, and of course, that was at the beginning of our first communications, and by the end of it the man ended up asking and offering to work for me as my subject matter expert towards the purpose of getting funding from the Department of Defense and for DARPA to work on furthering my research potentially for military applications for defenses. And so, I think it's just interesting to kind of point that out because I know, not everybody necessarily believes it's the military. It's definitely military level and grade operations. And, in ways they're trying to tell us it's them, and they have. Dr. Giordano himself in some of the videos.
Yeah.
His
Well,
video that
well,
he did
very.
at the Mad Scientist Laboratory in Georgetown, he even tells us, yeah, the military's got the weapons. They've had them for a while. They work. They use them. They're going to keep making more. And, but it's just what the real problem is it's not that, we don't really know who's responsible. And it's not that they don't really know who's responsible. Sadly, what the problem we're dealing with is that the problem is so huge. They don't know how to find a way that's not impossible to get it all under control, keep it in play, and actually be able to use it towards the purposes that they originally intended to use it for. So, what it is essentially a project run amok into such a complex mess, and nobody knows how to fix it. But nobody wants to pull the plug on what is perceived
That's it,
as
ladder.
one of the brightest points of future military warfare. So, and everybody else, unfortunately, has to sit in the middle of this conflict, this internal conflict going on, and deal with its problems. And it's sad.
Well, unfortunately, the US has set up these mobile phone dishes, which I believe are the transmitters, all around the world. I mean, all of last year, I was outside the country. I'll say it was like my second global crusade. I was globally investigating these technologies and how they were used on countries and cities around the world. And they're not scared to use these technologies now in public. You might think it might be different in the US, but you go into the Eastern Europe and further, and then they're not hiding it anymore. They're just broadcasting it, controlling everyone, raping everyone, and they're not bothered to be caught. They're not bothered to be found because the societies they're talking to are that low advanced that
Well,
they would
right,
never be
right, and
caught.
and I mean the
So they're not
use
scared.
of the technology even is not necessarily hidden. It's
You
incredible.
you
I mean, they actually admit stuff to
you
us.
don't
What's
understand when
incredible
there's
is that
there's graffiti
something's
all over
taking
the place.
place that even when they admit what they're doing and what's going on in their parts of it, people still don't believe it. It's the craziest thing.
Yes, it
Yeah, I
certainly
mean, there's
is.
graffiti all over the place. Hell written on the wall. Demons. MK Ultra. COINTELPRO. Sprayed and big. And when I was in Croatia, I went to Kazakhstan. I went to Romania, Moldova, Bulgaria, Bosnia. I went all the way down to Albania, Montenegro, France, Italy. I even went to Geneva and the broadcast there, but I graffitied the town, with the truth, and then went to the south of France and then went back home. But I was out the country over a year and a half, about a year and a half last year. But I've been back about a year now. I just forgot it's New Year's just passed. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New
But
Year.
yeah, I've been trying to develop new technologies myself, and I wasted a lot of time trying to design my own circuit board. I even hired a freelancer to help me with it. But I ordered it, manufactured the boards myself, and the boards just didn't work. So it was just a waste of time and a waste of money. But as I said, I got them dishes, and that's why I've moved into magnetics. And this Hellback array that's basically my newest project at the minute, is getting that up and running and see what happens if I put my head in between them coils. Would it protect me from EM weapons, which essentially is what they're using. But yeah, that's what I'm basically trying to figure out at the moment. But recently, I've just literally last week or this week sent emails off using batch email senders, like mail merge, etc., to pretty much all the senators in the US, all the MPs in England, all the MPs in Europe, I just went on a big email campaign to all the political figureheads of the world at the moment. Well, Europe, well, the Western world anyway.
Yeah, and
Not
that's
just very
great, and that's
recent,
great
only
when people do
yesterday
that.
or the day
I've
before.
wrote physical
I,
letters
I sent an
myself
email off to
even, but
50 senators,
everybody needs to do this stuff,
50
and just
US
find
senators
a
got that.
day,
So
when you get bored,
the thing
and
is, the US
just
senators,
send a bunch off, so that
they
they need
don't
to
list
hear
their
from
email address.
everybody. The more voices that our leaders hear from, the more important that they realize these issues are. And
Exactly, I
I think
agree.
it was a good time now because, like,
some interest, Pete, and I kind of
campaign like
wanted
this.
to share with you guys too, Frank, because it's one of your friends, somebody you know and you've met as well, and it's our friend Charisse, who I hadn't heard from for a long time, but I heard from her, a couple months back, and it was great hearing from her, and she is a retired Army sergeant, and she's started up a nonprofit in Michigan, and it is called Say Hell No Today.org. And just in case you hadn't heard from her for a while, she actually has a physical structure out there now. So she actually has a building in the community for her nonprofit. And, if anybody is in the area, you should definitely check it out because it's somewhere, you can actually go and stop by and be able to meet other TIs. And she's looking at, getting different resources and things together. But I wasn't sure if you had talked to her for a little bit. So I just kind of wanted to post a really cool update on our friend there. And a really fun tidbit for everybody else. Fun fact, Charisse one time during her military career got an amazing opportunity. So she was fighting the fight for for her family, herself, and everybody else, raising a commotion all the way to the level of the Secretary of Defense. She made good headway in her fight and everything. And at one point, they actually showed her two of the operations rooms where these kind of attacks can be propagated from, where they would use different radar systems, especially adapted to track people. And they would be, track diplomats, things like that as they'd come into the country. And, this the stuff you can, it's radars that you can see the people through walls and everything. But it was just interesting along the pathway of her journey. She actually got to see, this kind of technology in play being used about as real as it was ever going to get. But yeah, just, I want to give a shout out to her because she has this nonprofit. She's got a physical location. So if you're going to be in or around Michigan at all, check her nonprofit out and, stop in and give her a visit. Charisse is a really awesome person.
Very good. Thank you very much, Richard, and we will be in touch
No
with
problem.
you. Thank you very much for calling.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, get a message
Thank
to me,
you.
Richard.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while since we talked.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, David. Sure. Okay, I was going to ask you a question. Have remote neural monitoring victims expressed a positive reaction to Cyber Shield?
Yes. So the generally, the majority of people who get the equipment will have very positive reactions to the equipment. Usually, almost like immediately upon turning it on for the first time. It The equipment does work even better the longer you've been exposed to it. So does it protect you from everything? No. Is it able to block all of the actual monitoring specifically? So if we say remote neural monitoring, as far as the ability, to actually take some, deeper resolution scanning and, pick up activity and modulation that translates to data, can it block that? No. So we can't necessarily guarantee that it can maintain 100% of the privacy yet. Obviously, it is one of the things, that we're working on and making more effective. However, um, the results of what they use that data for to affect and attack people, we're able to mitigate a lot of that. So that's where the bread and butter actually comes into play. Is it's not what people can necessarily monitor and just kind of grab out of the air, but it's about the actual actions then that they're doing that we can mitigate best. But one day I would like to be able to completely cut everything off, but like everything, it's a work in progress. Most users get benefit, they get benefit right away. The benefit continues to increase and become better as some of the patterns and processes and the psychology that's been run on people begin to break down, and their own thought processes start to pull back under their control, become more normalized. They're not subjected to the stress of being under so much physical torture any longer, and it generally creates major improvements to people to where they're able to sustain and improve their life, continue working, go back to work. And in a few rare instances, sometimes it's just whatever's happening with somebody, either it's not the equipment for them, or something else could be going on. But that's actually a rarity. So surprisingly, I have to say, and it's actually interesting numbers, the majority of people who think they're targeted individuals are, only a small percentage of people appear to not be.
I see, said the blind man. But I wanted to ask another question. That's a very good answer. Would you please repeat for our listening audience the additional devices that would be in the box along with Cyber Shield when they receive it?
Sure. So generally, when you order a Cyber Shield, you're going to receive the Cyber Shield itself, which is around the size of a shoebox. You're going to get the antennas that will go onto it. So there's 9 modules, but generally we'll include a couple extra antennas. So you're probably going to have at least about 11 antennas. Um, there's going to be an LCD monitor that comes with it and will plug into a USB hub that comes out of the side of the box. We've generally, I believe, I hope John doesn't kill me for this, but I believe we changed things up, that we're shipping a computer mouse out with all of them now, which helps people with some of the customization of like the primaries on the unit. And that's just for some of the features where users are able to custom tailor the operations specifically for themselves and what works best for them, instead of having to use just a general configuration. There will be, generally, we're going to, unless there's a mishap, there's going to be some instructions that come in the box, that will explain assembly, general usage, the modes, what they do. Um, and then John likes to throw in usually some chocolate. So that'll be a little added bonus, unless there's some reason why we couldn't necessarily ship that. Some of the international shipments, you can't necessarily send them chocolate, but John likes to throw that in as a little bonus. That's actually something that he pays for himself and does out of the kindness of his own heart.
Once again, very good, David. Now, I have been asked this question myself. Does Cyber Shield have the specified power modifications needed for each country, as many have different receptacles, requirements, etc.?
So the units are adjustable and configurable in their power outputs and operations. So generally, they are going to have a base setup that should generally work with what the majority of rules in the U.S. are going to be. However, as you and I both well know, there's no consistency there. So things are not always as clear as they are in other places, or not possible. So we do expect and ask users and potential users to be aware of what any potential restrictions in your area may be, and make sure that the usage of the equipment is going to fall within those guidelines. Generally, it is, because in a lot of places we can fall under special circumstances, and restrictions doesn't always hold true, but we do have that option when it's important for people, that if they specify the equipment must not operate in a certain way, we do have ways that we can customize the equipment specifically for their needs, so that if they have a concern that something might violate a law in their country, we can make it so that the system will be compliant.
I see. Okay, how hard would it be to add another signal frequency to the Cyber Shield? And I'll give you an example. I would request 60 hertz myself.
So really easy. 60 hertz is already incorporated into some of the modules functionality, especially now with this new client I mentioned earlier, who
Yeah,
seems to be having some issues around 60 hertz specifically. Seems to be some of his biggest issues seem to be revolving around these attacks being propagated utilizing this exploitation that involves 60 hertz. So yeah, there's actually testing, literally new testing actually within the last 48 or 40 to 60 hours, for adaptations of additional protections against specifically that. So kind of cool timing on your questions for wondering about that.
I see.
And it's going to be ongoing research as well into that for me, to better incorporate protections from this 60 hertz from any exploitations, with the power grid and variations of that 60 hertz. If you can create another powerful enough, field, a little slightly, a slight variation of that 60 hertz, they can use it to propagate other ELF frequencies as well, that can have a profound effect on neurology. We could even be talking about getting down, below 10 hertz with it. There's a lot of different ways to kind of exploit that, and try to, alter it and modify the signal to create something else.
I see. Can you give our listening audience a feel as to what it is like to turn the unit on? What are the immediate effects that emerge into the room and subsequently into the victim's mind overall?
So for a lot of people, and some people's initial reaction can vary a little bit, but for a lot of people, they'll start to feel a lot more relaxed. Their emotions will feel a lot more stabilized, normalized, and in control, versus feeling more, bipolar and extreme. Things will start to feel more normal when it comes to emotions, thought process, attention span, being an ability to focus on different things, focus on what you're doing, focus on conversations, reduction in the different types of attacks and different physical things that's going on. But generally, it's also kind of coupled with, they have a reaction too when you first turn the equipment on. So the first time the equipment fires up in that new area, their equipment kind of goes into panic mode, because it's not even slightly calibrated to begin competing against the cyber shield. So there's kind of this, there can be kind of a brief intense period for the first minute or two for some people where there's some heavy competition with their equipment trying to continue to operate correctly before they realize it's malfunctioning and start to shut some of the processes down. So for some, it actually feels a little bit more intense for the first few minutes, and then it calms down. But the general experience is that it initially goes right to calming and a reduction, immediate reduction of physical attacks, and then that's by design of the mode that it's going to initially boot into, and then past that point, the users are able to start selecting other modes and adjusting the different ranges of operation to, tailor the effects that they're getting from it or increase them and make it more, meet their needs more. But it is set up in a way that the initial experience, it should give us an answer if they're, if they're going to be, if they're affected by Havana syndrome, if they're a targeted individual, we should know within the first few moments that that equipment's turned on. That for sure is going to be the experience that people get. Is something good or bad is going to happen? It's usually good. If it's bad, it's over within a moment, but you'll know.
Okay, now Jacqueline has been using the device for many years. What was her response? How did she react to it when she first turned it on?
So she started getting the protect started getting protection that she was looking for the different attacks that was happening to her, especially with like her legs, her abdomen. But of course, she had a range of different things going on with her, and she started getting a lot of immediate comfort and benefit from it. She started, she was able to stop utilizing different shielding techniques she was using before. So she had some little, like electromagnetic EMP shaman generators that she used to wear all over her body, all day, all night. And, it said like her husband gives her crap about it because she's got lights flashing on her sometimes. And, so when she got the cyber shield, and after she had it for a short period and decided to be brave and try the world without her shielding, and what she ended up doing was she was able to then take all of her shielding off and feel protected and safe for the first time in a long time. And then I'd say that's probably a pretty fair, recollection of, my remembrance of her first experiences with it.
Very good. When we spoke last, you were hunting for a company to assemble or manufacture your device or mass produce it. What changes have taken place? Have you actually found a company that will put this device together for you, manufacture?
So there's different options available, and really up to the point that things are at right now, what everything really revolves around is a matter of funding. So what I essentially need to do at this point to be successful in that endeavor is to be able to raise funding, which can be done through a few different means. I could try to personally raise funds through the community. I don't necessarily like going that route. I would rather, if I can do it, I would rather just handle it in the standard way that we would handle it in the business world, which would be that I have some different companies out there who are experienced at getting different types of funding from the government. It doesn't necessarily have to be through DARPA, which I have contacts for, but to go through more traditional programs, and that there would be funding available that I can look into getting this year to essentially it would be like a grant to help expand my operations. And then if, once approved, they would give me enough money to basically go out and, pay some companies to come up with the proper designs we're going to want to be manufactured, and then to be able to pay a company to start mass producing our custom hardware. So really, it's getting to the point where this is the year where I want to make a lot of important things happen, and I know what it is that's required of me to make this all work out at the end. And it's with, no doubt at all in my mind is I need to secure grant funding this year, which is available for reasons that I need it to be available, which is going to be for growth and expansion, product improvement, things like that. So yeah, as long as everything keeps going on, everything keeps going the ways it's going now, I should be able to hit that milestone this year to be able to finally start moving forward and actually have the designs being produced and have some prototype boards maybe being cut before the end of the year.
Have you had any more dealings with a gentleman in Poland who had been trying to market your device?
So interesting question. Yeah, not dealings, but so I haven't really interacted with that person. But I did get an email out of the blue a few months back asking to make sure that something was forwarded to Dr. James Giordano. Because, it's not to say, it doesn't matter. But I don't think Dr. James Giordano really cares for that person. Didn't seem to want to respond to that person's emails. Didn't really seem to be interested in them. He really seemed more interested in me. So I think that's really all it was. Is I don't know what he tried to send to Dr. Giordano, but I got this email asking me to forward whatever it was to him, knowing that James would look at my email, but he didn't attach nothing. So I don't actually know what he was trying to do, and I just didn't respond because unless he's looking to be a client of mine, and then it would only be a relationship along those lines. I really don't, feel compelled to have much interaction with that person. Which you can say who it is if you want. I just don't like to name
No,
Sauron.
I just won't. I was just curious if that was resolved. And many people do not know your return policy. Could you explain that in detail? Because many people have claims and they don't follow up. Now, I happen to know that if someone doesn't like your device, you return the money in full. You were asking a small restocking fee. Has that changed any? Because I know that your integrity speaks for itself.
Yeah, so no, are the policies still the same thing that it's been? So the policy is you have 30 days from the time that you receive the device. So it'd be the day that tracking says that you got it. So you have 30 days from that point to try the hardware out and make sure that that hardware is functional for you. And if before the end of that 30-day period you determine that this is not your solution, and this does happen with a very small percentage of people. At the current statistics, it's like, we're talking literally like what we would have to say is like 1 to 2% of people. It's almost no one. Then at that point, as long as they initiate the contact with me, express that they'd like to return the equipment, as long as it's within the 30-day time frame, they don't even have to ship it back in time. I just need them to tell me that they're going to return it and that it's getting sent on its way, before that 30-day time period is up. And once I get the equipment back, I inspect the equipment. As long as nothing is damaged on it, there's a few things that we'll refurbish on the equipment because we want to make sure that the equipment's going out brand new, everything's in tip top shape. So we charge a 15% refurbishment restock fee out of the total amount as long as there's no damage to the machine, like the monitor doesn't come back broken or something. And we refund everything else minus that 15%. Or if something is damaged, then just the cost of parts.
I see.
But that has happened. That has happened a few times. So I've had a few returns come in and refunded their money, and no problems for them. And apologetic that it's not their solution, and I wish them the best and hope that they find their solution, what their problems are.
Okay, can you explain to the listening audience the power output of Cyber Shield? And I'll give you an example. This has come up in many conversations. The United States has the highest limitation on cell phones or microwaves, and that's 10 microwatts over centimeter squared. What does the Cyber Shield actually put out?
So full output, and we do not run the Cyber Shield at full output. It is always run, hardware coded, not to ever be able to run at full output. But it has a theoretical output of 9 watts total. Not an impressive amount of power by some standards. By other standards, it would be an impressive amount of power. So it depends on who you're asking. But we do have control over what that output is. Again, like I said, it is restricted to less than full output in all operations. I generally do not have full output unlocked, for anybody, especially for reasons such as wear and tear on the equipment. We want to leave that little buffer zone that we're operating the equipment in a more efficient range where it's going to last longer. But it does have, there is several different levels of power that we can run the equipment at, and even down to an extremely low output mode where we're talking about only a few milliwatts worth of output. But so we can vary from a few milliwatts up to an entire 9 watts combined. 1 watt is the max output power, the max output power for any module, any single module.
Okay, thank you very much. 9 watts then. We recently interviewed Jesse Beltran. Now, I personally believe that it would be mutually beneficial for you guys to speak to each other. And I think we can make that happen because he covers the other modes of the program. And would you be averse to something like that?
No, I wouldn't. And I think I spoke with him before. So, sorry, I'm terrible with names sometimes and I mix people up, but I'm pretty sure I thought I've had dealings with Jesse before. But I do know people as well. I have friends who are friends with him because I believe I was asking one of those, or I was talking to one of those friends a little while back because I was interviewing with Lisa Lyon, the executive producer for Coast to Coast AM, about being on the show. I was too sane for the show, but I believe Jesse was on the show as well. So I had meant to follow up with him, but I hadn't really had the opportunity yet. So I mean, life gets busy sometimes, and then you accidentally forget a few things along the way. But that's definitely one of the things on my list. And yeah, if you could help facilitate that, I would love that.
Okay, fantastic. Have you had any progress with V2K victims, which are actually a part of, excuse me, remote neural monitoring.
Yeah,
V2,
so some of the people affected by the V2K, which is, where they're able to hear audible speech in their head through one form or another, various means to, create that audible speech. But yeah, I have a bunch of users who suffer from V2K, some of them quite a bit of it, and some of the users are able to get 100% effectiveness on cutting the V2K off for generally certain periods of time. Sometimes it can be for a few days or even, weeks or more at a time where they don't have the V2K anymore. But then eventually they'll kind of recalibrate around it a little and break through a little bit, at which point they can get the newest update and it generally clears it back up for them. So they get the V2K back, they get their update, it goes away. Uh, it's not getting rid of everybody's V2K and, not 100% for everybody. But then for others, it can have quite a dramatic reduction in the V2K that people have left if it doesn't eliminate it all. So some of the advancements that we have made with its V2K fighting abilities have actually been really awesome, and we have finally seen that actual 100% mark with people being able to completely stop their V2K. Now, I of course am always continuing to work on this stuff. So what I look forward to is that the next layer of progress is going to be that we can achieve that 100% cutoff for everybody and then work to achieve something that can maintain that indefinitely. And that would be amazing to see that day. But yeah, it is amazing to be able to say that we've actually made progress against the V2K, and that I know that's, you know, so important to some people. In fact, one of my clients didn't realize she had V2K. She was really convinced that it was people outside of her window or in the apartment upstairs. And I couldn't have paid her $1 million to change her mind. She was committed to her belief. And once we had the new changes to the V2K working, where it actually had a major impact on her V2K for the first time, and things got quiet for her, then she all of a sudden realized, she's like, oh my God, she's like, it wasn't real the whole time. Once it all stopped, once we were able to stop it, she realized it wasn't real. It was never real. But she was so convinced. And I'm telling you, Frank, that's how powerful this stuff is to some people, and how much they've been messed with psychologically. Is that, these guys are treating us like idiots. They're essentially making noises around people and snapping fingers and throwing the proverbial rocks and forcing people to focus on it. And I mean, it's just driving people insane, and people don't know what's going on. And as far as there's somebody there, and it's really empowering to some people, and just really changes the dynamics for them and their stress levels and what they believe and experience and go through when they're able to see the V2K shut off and they realize how bad it actually was and how much in their life was actually V2K and wasn't even real. We're talking about the instances where people are walking around out in public and they think somebody across the street is yelling slanderous things at them. And, come to find out that may not have actually happened. That nobody across the street may have said anything. That's how the V2K can work. It's amazing in application how it can function, but it's not amazing what they do with it. But it's really convincing to people. But again, life changing when it stops for them and they actually start to see reality for the first time. So yeah, I'm really proud of that. and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds on even further advancements with being able to put an end to V2K and this voice to skull phenomena that is just, destroying people's lives.
David, you mention on your website that you will do demonstrations. Does this mean that you will fly to someone's residence to do a demonstration?
So no, not anything like that. What they have is they have demonstrations in, certain area of California. So if somebody is going to be in and around that area, um, someone would travel to you within a certain degree. It depends on the distance. So if somebody came out to San Francisco, for example, they had a reason to make a trip out there, they were passing through the area, or they were going to be somewhere within a few hours away, then arrangements could be made that they could either drive there or somebody could actually come to them within reason. But as far as being able to actually fly out to somebody to do a demonstration, that's not something we're actually able to do. If there was a special circumstance where, somebody was willing to pay for the expenses of doing something like that, it could be feasible. But the reality is it would make more sense and probably be cheaper for somebody in that circumstance to actually just purchase the equipment, try it out, and if it's not for them, return it, and it would cost far less than trying to do a demonstration that way.
Okay, I have one more question for you, and then I think we will close for the evening. What is around the corner for you and Cyber Shield?
So, what is around the corner is looking forward to a lot of new AI develop AI developed resources, which means we're going to be able to develop more powerful resources. Looking at 2025 being the year of active scanning going live, which is the system I mentioned that is going to use machine learning to actually study in depth the entire spectrum around you. And we're going to start to actually, analyze and nail down what the spectrum is around you, what's taking place, what these signals are. We're going to label them, classify them, define them, precisely determine exactly what they are. And we're really going to start to learn what, through machine learning, begin to document and through analysis determine precisely what the real anomalous signals are and what everything is that's causing the problems in its totality. So having the tools to be able to fully understand the entire spectrum is going to allow us to effectively, fight precisely what we need to go after and nothing more. And we're looking at an active system with the ability to adapt. So as they try to change things up, the system would actually be able to very easily detect changes in the environment and spectrum around you and know immediately if something new is being deployed, for example, or a new technology is starting to be put into play. It means being able to have the tools to actually know when that's taking place and be able to have a first response to their changes. So, I mean, it's really cool what it means to have situational awareness in the spectrum and to finally be able to say, we know what's happening with all the signals in the airwaves around us, and to be able to know when something changes and if we have to do something about it. So it's just really awesome, the state of technology and resources and tools available to us to help us with development of these advanced tools and technologies. But it's a great time for us because that's where things are. So where the regular guys like us, we get to have the powerful AI tools and machine learning and everything at disposal to do what we need to accomplish. And so, biggest goals of the year is incorporating as much of this new technology as I can into the coding and taking the systems to the next level and going from what we would consider a passive system with pre-designed modules to an active system that will, be able to immediately react to negative changes within the environment. And I think that will, be able to push operations to a whole new level of performance. And just so people are aware, excuse me, the fact that the equipment doesn't do this yet does not mean anything for people who are buying because they need protection now. This is something that you'll plug in a piece of hardware that will buy for you and mail to you if we need to. And then you'll load an update on, and then your equipment will do all the new stuff. So we've done a great job of future proofing the equipment to make sure that we can bring a lot of these great updates and advancements to the technology and the software and be able to still add new hardware components and upgrade the software and add all these new functionalities. So what you buy now is essentially going to be the same base hardware that it's going to be in a year from now, but with any additional software and hardware expansions added on. And these are things that, any additional hardware you literally have, ports you would just plug it into on the machine, press to do your update, and that would be that. And then you'll have these new features one day. So anyway, sorry, Frank. I know I get long-winded sometimes.
That's
I can
okay.
say a
That's
whole
okay.
lot about very little. Sometimes it's not very little, but but yeah, that's the big thing is that one thing is the most exciting. But then with this other thing being that I want 2025 to be the year that we finally are able to make progress towards more cost effective and efficient production. And so that's going to rely on getting funding. So I need investment, and hopefully I can get that all through through some different government grants available to help do exactly what it is that I want to do with this business.
Very good. Well, at this point in time, I'd like to say thank you, Richie, for calling in. I'd like to thank you very much, David, for being here this evening. I'd like to thank my listeners and supporters. And I would like to say good night from Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Frank Allen.